So I think a lot of people were surprised on Sunday when Wisconsin moved on from Paul Chryst as their head coach. You know, Wisconsin had been kind of that standard bearer for that second tier of college football teams. You know, the teams outside of the elite. You know, you look at the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgias, Clemson, those type of schools, that second tier down, Penn State, Michigan, Wisconsin, schools like that. Wisconsin was a team that a lot of teams wanted to be. I know Nebraska fans would love to be Wisconsin at this point. But things were trending down. And Wisconsin administration, the last couple of years, Wisconsin hasn't been Wisconsin. They've been good, but they haven't been what they should be. And so they probably figured, let's make a move now to ensure that we can get Wisconsin back to where they need to be. And so Paul Chryst is out, Jim Leonard is in as their interim head coach. And so when we look at candidates, like who is Wisconsin going to go out and hire? I think we got to look at the Wisconsin guys because that's where they've had their most success. When Bielema left for Arkansas and they brought in Gary Anderson, he wasn't a Wisconsin guy, and it didn't really work well. And maybe it just was Barry Alvarez and him not seeing eye to eye, and that caused things to not be what they should. Gary Anderson left, and then they brought in Paul Chryst, and they kind of got back to being Wisconsin of old. So who are they going to hire? I think, like I said, let's start with the Wisconsin ties. And I think there's no surprise that I'm not shocked that they fired Chryst because, once again, in today's college football with the transfer portal and that, you've got to get your coach in as soon as possible. And so I think firing Chryst allows them to kind of go out and identify who they want to interview, who they want to talk about, talk to those coaches behind the scenes, and then when it's time to, you can finally make that, season's over, boom, you can make that hire right away, and they can get on with their stuff, and you're not waiting too long. But I think the timing of the Chryst firing was a twofold, because the logical replacement for Paul Chryst is Jim Leonard, who is now their interim head coach. But Jim Leonard, their defensive coordinator, who was highly sought after, his name got brought up in the Nebraska candidate list. The Packers tried to hire him as their defensive coordinator. A lot of people are saying, oh, Jim Leonard's eventually going to be the head coach at Wisconsin at some point. So him being the interim for the second half of the season-ish gives him them a chance to see what he can do as the head coach. And I think, in my mind, and I could be wrong, that Wisconsin is hoping that he goes out and he rejuvenates this team and they salvage the season and they have success, and everything he does proves to the administration that, yes, he is the guy. And they made the right decision. He'll bring in his own offensive coordinator, and they'll go whatever route they go. So I think that's kind of what they want to happen. Wisconsin guy, innovative thinker, younger coach. He has all I think that they want, but he just doesn't have head coaching experience. So who are some other guys? Some other Wisconsin ties. I think we can't do this video without talking Bret Bielema. Now, I don't think Bret Bielema is going to be the next head coach at Wisconsin, but it wouldn't shock me. I mean, he had success there. He's building Illinois into what they are right now. The team that just beat Wisconsin at Wisconsin pretty handedly, caused them to fire their head coach. He beat them playing Wisconsin football. And so I think it would be not, you have to consider this as an option. Another name that's out there, Dave Doran, who is North Carolina State's head coach, another former Wisconsin assistant. He's a name that continues to get brought up when it comes to bigger jobs. He's done an admirable job at NC State. They've had success. They win consistently. They produce a lot of high-end talent. They have a lot of guys that get drafted in the NFL draft. And but he's never gone over that hump. They've never won their division. They've never contended. They're always like, a dark horse candidate to win the ACC, but they never even get to that ACC championship game. So is it the fact that he's maxed out what they can do at NC State, or he's just, a good but not great head coach? What about Dave Aranda? Gary Anderson tenure wasn't the best thing at Wisconsin, but it did give him Dave Aranda, who brought in that 3-4 defense that I think really rejuvenated that defense. And it's not like Wisconsin had bad defenses before, don't get me wrong. But I think switching to the 3-4 has done wonders for Wisconsin, and I think taking that defense even up a level. And he had a lot of success there. He's highly respected. Once again, a name on the Nebraska list. He was a name potentially for USC. And I think it's going to take a perfect job for him to leave Baylor. Is Wisconsin that perfect job? But what about the non-Wisconsin guys? There's a guy out there that's Wisconsin adjacent, but not a Wisconsin guy, and that's Lance Leipold at Kansas. Before he went to Buffalo, he was at Wisconsin Whitewater, winning national championships like every year. He was the Alabama of the Division III. And why not bring a guy like that back? Wisconsin did this with their basketball program. They brought in a lower level guy that coached, and it wasn't Division III, but they brought in a lower division coach to be, and that had success. Why not do that in football? Lance Leipold had all that success at Wisconsin Whitewater, did really well at Buffalo, and now he's got Kansas at 5-0. He's got all those ties to the state. Wisconsin is a developmental program. They're not bringing in elite players like Alabama, USC, Georgia, Ohio State. They're bringing in kind of a top 30 program every year and developing those players. That's Lance Leipold. All right, if we get away from the Wisconsin ties, what about guys like Matt Campbell, Luke Fickell, Matt Rule? Those are three other names that are out there. Luke Fickell, I don't know if I'm totally sold on him being the next Wisconsin coach. He seems to be pretty happy at Cincinnati, seems to be holding out for either Ohio State or, maybe Notre Dame. I don't think he would go to Wisconsin. It wouldn't shock me, but I don't think he'd go there. I think Campbell's the guy to really kind of keep an eye on. He's another guy like a Lance Leipold, developmental coach. We're going to get 3 stars and turn them into 4 stars. We're going to turn 4 stars into 5 stars. I'm going to have this great program. I think he's a guy that if they do go outside of the Wisconsin tree, he's the guy to kind of keep an eye on. So like I said, I think this is the premier job that's out there right now. Who knows what's going to open up? I'm sure Auburn's going to open up as well. But I think Wisconsin's the top job out there. Like I said, I think this is Jim Leonard's job to lose. I think it's his job to lose. But a couple guys, I think if it doesn't go to Leonard, I think the guy to really kind of keep an eye on is Leipold or Campbell. And I think if you get one of those 3 coaches, Wisconsin fans, you have to be happy.